So you see Isaac McWalla will be on that race as well too. He's trying to get a qualifier for the World Championships for 2022. So, yeah, I think the same thing about Bromell and Gatlin. We could see some quick times there in the 100, just because 5,800 feet is up there.
I love this photo of Bromell at the airport. What is that on his body? That like book bag? It looks like he's like in like military uniform, like he's about to like go on a special ops, like try to kill a terrorist in like a movie made by like he's like in a Jack Ryan movie. It's like a Michael Bay trying to show up. It's like Bad Boys for Life. I don't know. It's wild. He just seems very badass in this photo. What do you think? And he's just going to leaving the airport. Do you see that?
The glasses, yeah, the glasses look nice. I saw the backpack and made him look like he was going to go on a really long hike and had a bunch of snacks and stuff on there and survival gear. But looks like he's a man on a mission here. So let's go through these though one by one. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about that men's 100. So Bromell and Gatlin, what would you define as success for both of these men in this race?
Well, I think success for Gatlin would be a sub 10, right? Kind of end your season with another sub 10. Success for Bromell would be a win and maybe a 9-8, kind of showing that like you still have that like top elite type mark in you. Again, it's going to be weird because these are last races of the year. You don't know the mental aspect that they're in, the mindset that they're in going in. So I think sub 10 for Gatlin, sub 990 for Bromell. But the question I have for Gatlin in this race is he has said that this is his final year, right? And
Yeah.
then there was a report that the Bellinzona race was going to be his final race, but
Hmm.
clearly it's not because he's in Nairobi running another 100 here. Is this
Yeah.
100% without a doubt going to be his final professional 100?
I don't think we can say that. There's
Can't
two
say it.
different ways to do there's two different ways to do the retirement. There's the announce it ahead of time, and then you do the farewell tour, and everybody knows it's your last go around. And then there's the 2 weeks after your last race, you send out a tweet that says "I'm retired." Basically, I don't know. I think he can keep going sub 10 for another year and end in Eugene if he wants to. Can he make the team? He'd be a real long shot to make the team at this point. It just depends what he wants to do. I would guess a guy who's won gold medals and had the success he had, having one more year where you're the sixth or seventh guy doesn't do much to motivate you. But then again, it's a home world championship. Maybe he wants to take one more crack at it because he's
Yeah,
saying
so
it's
he's
the
quoted
final race of
saying,
his season. Final race of the
yeah,
season.
not
Season.
yeah, season, not career. I think we might be seeing Justin Gatlin in 2022. You know,
That makes
I
sense
mean, he
though.
can break 10. It makes sense if you could get consistency and have back like run consistently under 10 seconds. I mean, he has how many this year? Let's scroll back down. He's broken 10 1, 2, 3, 4 times. That's that's enough, right? I mean, and they had a 10 flat. I mean, he pulled up in the 100 final around 1087. So maybe he was able to make the final. If you can make a final, especially in this day and age, you have the ability. And I do think the final at USA's might be a little different. Coleman probably won't be in it because he'll scratch because he has the bye. And
Mhm.
then you just got to be top 6, and then he could be in the relay pool. And then I think maybe he ends his career with, being on a relay. And maybe his final contribution to Team USA is getting the stick around,
Yeah.
atoning for all of the failures of the 4x1 and ending it with one last go around. So maybe that's on his mind. I don't know.
Maybe he wants to break 10 as a 40-year-old and he turns 40 in February of next year. Maybe that's a motivating
Yeah,
factor too. And
that
I
could be it.
think he might look at trials and say, that injury was a fluke. I'm usually pretty durable. And if I had been healthy, I could have got on that relay pool.
Yeah, he probably thinks that, and I won't blame him for thinking that. I mean, because who was on the replay? Micah Williams and
Williams,
Cravon Gillespie. He probably
yeah,
thinks I
and
could beat
then
one of those guys.
right now we just talked last episode about how stacked the men's 100 is going to be next year. So again, he would be a long shot, but maybe he just wants one last official. All right, this is it for real this time. For real. This is not gonna be like one of those boxing retirements where I keep saying I'm retiring and then I keep coming out for one last fight. This is for real this time, and he has a chance to compete at home world championships. That could be it as well too.
If you could design how you would retire, assuming you had a career like Gatlin, whereas 15 plus years, made a bunch of teams, won a bunch of medals. How would you want to end your season? Would you want to do a Kobe Bryant thing where everyone is like doing a thing for you at every track meet, knowing you're
Hmm.
going to the end? Like, what would you want?
Yeah, I would want as much attention as possible, and I'd want as many gifts as possible. And you go to each meet, each venue, they give you a different thing. They recognize you, even if you're not as good. You get more attention than the people who actually win. Yeah, sign me up for like unnecessarily high amounts of attention. I mean, you wouldn't do that. Who wouldn't do that?
Would you want to though end your career with a win? Because odds
Ooh.
are he won't be. If he goes through Eugene, he's not going to end his career with a win because he's not beating you know Coleman, Curry,
No,
all these
I
guys.
think
So
I think I'd rather go out with in a significant race, even if I lose. That's what I would do. You don't want to be like, hey, I ended my career with a victory in Claremont Sprint Classic number 4 where no one's paying attention. I'd rather do it
true.
getting 7th in a US championships or a trials, something where there's actually, people who are paying attention. Track athletes though, I don't know what it is with track retirements. There's been a couple people who have said it ahead of time and give you a little bit of warning so then you know. A lot of them never tell you and then they're retired, or a lot of them tell you right before the last race. And then a lot of them we don't even know if they're retired. And you're like, wait a minute, they ran a 200 last year. They ran a mile last year, which is weird. And I don't know if it's because they don't want the attention or they think they'll be able to get it back, or maybe it's because their contract got cut and they're embarrassed to talk about it, or they don't want to. And then before you know it, it's been 18 months. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'm retired, but I'm not going to make a big
Yeah.
fuss about it because no one's seen me race for 18 months.
Yeah, it's weird. Retirement in track is not obvious thing. I mean, but you could also say retirement also can in other sports can be kind of drawn out sometimes, right? Someone like Carmelo Anthony, was he retired and then he found a way to get back and now he's still
Yeah,
going on. There are athletes who are like still fighting to make rosters even though they might be
sure.
retired and they just have yet to admit it. They go overseas, play some basketball in China a few months to try to chase that one last 10-day
Yeah.
deal. So I think just retirement, just athletes in general, it's they're really good because of their mindset of
Hmm.
always believing in themselves and never saying it like nothing, basically believing nothing's impossible. And
Yeah.
admit saying retiring is you telling your is you admitting that it is impossible because you're like I'm done, like I can't be as good. So it's really hard for these athletes to kind of come around and recognize that it's done. It's just like it makes sense that
I,
athletes don't handle retirement easier the way a regular person's like, hell, I'm retired, I get to go on vacation all the time now, because I don't
yeah.
want to work in the mailroom anymore.
I'm trying to think of the ones that I remember recently. Like Sana Richards Ross, I think we knew that was her last race. And then pulled up in that last race of trials. Like her body, she had given all she could give. I remember Webb trying to break 4 again at Milrose in his last race. Nick Simmons publicizing his last race. With American athletes, it's tough because if you're at a trials or US champs, you don't want to be like, this is my last race because you're basically saying you're not going to qualify for worlds or the Olympics. So that's a weird position to put yourself in mentally. Um, but Yeah, it is. It is interesting. I think the Gatlin situation underscores that a bit. So,
Like, is LaShawn
yeah,
Merritt retired because
yeah,
he came back and ran randomly in these trials, and you know,
dude. You know what we need to do for next year? We should. You know how Barkley on the inside of the NBA guys do the who he play for thing, where they name a person and they try to figure out what
yeah,
team they're on.
yeah,
We should do are they retired and just guess and just throw
yeah.
names out there.
And then be like, actually, this person ran in September of
Yeah,
2021.
like each time we try to stump each other and we come up with the name and you're like, hey, is this
All
person
right.
retired? And the like because Merritt's a perfect example. He was at trials getting interviewed by Lewis Johnson, and it's like, whoa. I mean, I saw him in a couple of those Florida meets, but he was actually there. And I think he said it was it, but he didn't want to go all the way, saying I'm done.
Ooh, this would
So
be a fun game.
yeah, are they retired? That's my new favorite game. There's Merritt on the
Yeah.
screen. Man, that talk about a guy making the most of his seasons though. There were so many years where he ran all over the circuit. It was incredible. Yeah, his last race went out in the semis. I mean, credit to him for making the semis. Got out around, so he's still in decent shape. We shall see. All right, coming to a podcast near you, 2022. Talk to me about